On Notice is a podcast from NOTUS, hosted by Reese Gorman and presented by BP.
Hello, and welcome back to On Notice. I'm your host, Reese Gorman. Today's guest is Congressman Tom Emmer, the Majority Whip in the House of Representatives. I talked to him about what a whip does, what it means to be the whip, and what his path to Congress looked like. We'll get to all that in a moment, but first I want to introduce my friend, Mariana Sotomayor. She covers Congress for a local paper here in Washington, D.C. called The Washington Post. I'm sure some of y'all have heard of it. She's covered Congress for a long time. Previously was with NBC News. And earlier this year, she wrote a really good profile of Congressman Tom Emmer. I wanted to have her on and kind of talk about what it was like reporting that and to share some of her thoughts about the House Majority Whip. So, Mariana, you're on Notice. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Can you just walk me through your profile? And the headline was really interesting, too. For Tom Emmer, I mean, Trump is the, quote, closer. I want to just open the floor up to you here. Kind of walk me through and explaining the profile, what you learned about Tom Emmer, and then we'll dive into some more questions.
Yeah, for sure. So I was intrigued, and this is just, I'm sure this has happened to you, where you're like reporting on a completely different story and members just volunteer information and it's not even on your radar. And you're like, wait, I'm picking up on something. And the thing I was picking up on a lot last year in particular was just members. It didn't matter if they were from the far right, rank and file, moderates, like any profile. They're like, I love Tom Emmer. Emmer's great. And I was like, man, how can someone whose job is to twist arms and sometimes aggressively twist arms, force somebody who doesn't want to vote a certain way to get to a yes, be so respected? So it was that curiosity that led me to the profile. And I wanted to sit down with him, and I was able to do that earlier this year to try and understand that. And also talk to a number of members to try and explain why they really enjoy working with Emmer. And the profile itself, it's been an interesting year for House Republicans. Obviously, this is their second term in the majority. We saw how in the last Congress, they really had to rely on Democrats to pass a number of votes. Totally different story this year, and a big reason why. And you can ask members, they really do think that President Donald Trump is the reason that, one, they have the majority, and two, are able to deliver a number of votes, especially because there is that very, very small majority. Emmer's really tall. He always has a scowl on his face. He has, as his wife Jackie says, very thick Irish eyebrows. So all of that gives the impression that he's really going to walk into a room and just start badgering you. And that, he says, is actually not productive when you have such a narrow majority. You kind of have to understand not just the personality of each member, but you can't push them away. And that's something that I heard a lot from Freedom Caucus members. They tend to be the ones who protest different kinds of votes, including rule votes, which is a specific vote that whips traditionally do not whip. And they say, listen, if he twisted my arm too hard, I would be a no. I'd be out. He would alienate me.
Tom Emmer, I mean, there was not always a great relationship with Trump or some of the members even. I mean, Trump famously tanked his speaker bid back in 2023 when former Speaker Kevin McCarthy was ousted. Trump called him globalist rhino and just said, I have no idea who he is. I know I reported in November, December of 2024 about how Emmer resurrected this relationship with Trump. What did he tell you about that? Because honestly, like in this day and age Republican Party, you can't be anywhere high up in the Republican Party without Trump not hating you, or at least just Trump like, if you want to rise, you need Trump to like you. And it seems like he's done a really good job of courting Trump and his allies. I mean, he played Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and JD Vance's debate prep ahead of the VP debate. So it seems like he's done a lot. I mean, how did he kind of resurrect that relationship that you found?
One thing that I remember, even this is before I sat down with him officially for this interview, this was, I think, in early 2024, he mentioned how, a notable moment from that speakership race was he went back into the room and just sat there, and members were just peppering him with questions. And he just took it. And that actually earned him a lot of respect within the membership, including some who voted against him privately for speaker. They were like, I actually appreciate that you want to know why members are against you. And that is kind of what contributed to wanting to know what Trump thought about him. So it was him and his team, for the most part, that like you said, if you want to be part of the Republican Party, if you want a future, you have to have a relationship with Trump, especially in a leadership position. So his team worked for some time, especially during the 2024 primary. I mean, remember, there were a couple of Republicans who were endorsing Ron DeSantis or other candidates. And what Emmer really wanted to do was ensure that all of the Republicans from the Minnesota delegation endorsed Trump early during the primary. It was kind of his show of not just, hey, I know how to whip, I know how to get people to a yes, I know how to get people, most importantly, to be in your corner. And that was really a moment, it's my understanding, that Trump was like, okay, this guy can deliver.
What is some of the things that you would like to learn about Emmer, and what kind of questions should I ask him? Obviously, know him a
Yeah.
lot, but what do you think listeners and people would want to know? What kind of question would you like to see asked of him?
Since I interviewed him, they did end up passing the one big, beautiful bill. And there's a lot of strategy behind it. It took months to get all of those members to vote for this piece of legislation that has become the Trump agenda. I think right now we're at a time where a lot of members are angry at the speaker, in part because they were gone for over 50 days during that government shutdown. Members, of course, have their own priority bills, or they just you're entering 2026, which becomes a political year. Everything becomes a messaging bill. They really feel like, despite passing that big bill, they don't know what their agenda is. They don't know what they're supposed to be out there talking about, championing. And one thing, as I was going back through my interview with Emmer, that he noted is he was a former hockey player, former hockey coach. He thinks that, that background of his is what makes him an effective coach to the House Republicans. And he had mentioned, it is you as a coach, you have to make members believe in something. And when there is that something, that goal, it makes it easier to get that buy-in. And at this point in time, like, Republicans don't have the next goal. What is that next thing? Like, has it even been difficult for him? Maybe he pivots and says, this is a job for Speaker Johnson. He's the one who sets the agenda, and then I'm the one who deploys to make sure people get around it. But, like, do they need something to vote on next year that's big, that's bold, that gets that buy-in? And if so, what is it? What's going to get those members back to feeling good again?
Well, Mariana, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Everyone stay tuned. We'll have Tom Emmer on here shortly.
Behind every BP fill-up, thousands of people across America go to work every day. People producing energy offshore, people turning it into products at our refineries, people doing R&D to make products that are better for your engine, people trading and shipping fuels to their destinations, and the people who help you at one of BP's growing family of retail stations. They're part of almost 300,000 jobs we support across the country. Just a few of the ways BP is investing in America.
We're joined today by Whip Tom Emmer from Minnesota. Mr. Whip, thank you so much for joining us today. I want to get started. Obviously, you're the House Whip. I know what that means. Could you elaborate for people? What does a whip do?
By the way, Reese, it's funny to me that adults don't know what it is, but they're too embarrassed to ask, right? It's like, well, everybody should know what that means. No, they don't know what it means. The speaker's in charge of everything, in charge of the grounds, in charge of Capitol Police, in charge of the agenda, everything. The majority leader is responsible for working with chairs of committees to determine when things are ready to come to the floor, and then he schedules the floor, and he and his office create a year-long calendar every year that tells members when we're going to be in session and when they can be working their districts. The whip, when you look at it from the outside, is the guy who has to make sure that when those things are ready to be scheduled for the floor, they can pass. Our job is to be the voice of the members to the speaker and the majority leader when it comes to pieces of legislation that they want to bring to the House floor, because we're not going to bring it if it can't pass. So we do a lot of work, preparation work with members to know. I've told people, and this is why, this is the best coaching job I've ever been given. You need to know everyone on your bench. You need to know what they can do, what they can't do, what they will do, what they won't do. And then you got to be able to communicate that up to the speaker and the leaders so that we're doing the art of the possible. What I say to members, I literally is, you got two rules with us. First rule is you take care of the people at home. That's number one. Nobody in Washington, D.C. voted for you. Number two, you got to take care of yourself, because if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not going to be here long. If you can do those two things, Reese, then we can figure out how to help you be part of a bigger team.
I know my first envision of a whip is Kevin Spacey's character in House of Cards. That's where I first got it from. Going into it, what do you think is the biggest surprise when you first got into the job? I know you had a tough battle to become the whip. You defeated Jim Banks in a very close race.
Actually, it was Drew Ferguson. Drew and I actually had the majority of the votes, and we split them. I beat him by one. That's what it was. So it was good. But Jim was great too. It was spirited. Nothing is a surprise. It literally is a continuation of what I've been doing for the last almost 10 years around here. It's part social and it's part strategic. The social part is you got to get to know everybody. I like people. I like to figure out what makes them tick, what is their motivation. That's always been fun for me. The other part of it is strategic. What are we trying to accomplish? I mean, when I ran the NRCC, we're trying to win a majority. Same thing. You get to know all the members in these different districts. More importantly, you get to know their districts, right? Because unlike the Senate, unlike U.S. Senate races and or statewide state races like the governor's race, we got 435 unique pieces of geography. Each one has its own demographics that you need to understand. We literally are running, in our case, it'll be anywhere from 25 to 35 campaigns to win open seats, defeat incumbents, etc. But you got to have a plan.
Who are some of the hardest people to whip right now? I know there's people that are you don't even have to whip. I think Massey's always going to vote no on the vast majority of things. You clock that up.
No. I mean, I talked to Thomas on one of the appropriations bills back in September, and I was talking to him about it, and he goes, look, I just haven't had a chance to read it, and he wouldn't mind me telling you this story, which is why I'm telling you. I said, oh, so that means we have a chance to get your vote. And he said, yeah, you do. It's obviously the answer ultimately was no, but we have a good relationship, and my job is not to judge our members, Reese. I don't tell them they're right or they're wrong. Mine is to listen to them and understand where they're at, make sure that they have all the information they need, because there might be some things that they don't know about. And who's the toughest to whip? Every single member of our conference. I mean, there are some that will communicate differently than others. Some are very aggressive. Some are very passive, but you got to respect each and every one of them. And you can't assume just because someone is not as aggressive as another member that their opinion isn't just as important, because they might tell you to go pound sand if you don't talk to them.
Did you ever see yourself being the number 3 ranking House Republican before you even got into politics? I know we've talked about it between us, but I mean, what was your path up here? Did you ever envision yourself you'd get to this point?
No. It's the story of my political career is literally, I tried to get out of politics back in 2010. Tried to get out of politics by running for governor, and then I damn near got elected, and I set all this in motion. And now, I guess what I really envision is I'm a good teammate. I just want to be part of the team. I want to be the teammate that you rely on when you need something. I want to be the teammate that you trust. And I think everything that I've done since I came to Congress is all about that, being a good teammate, somebody that if you need help, you can rely on. And if you want to know what the truth is, you're going to get it.
You grew up in Minnesota. You went to college in Alaska, played hockey. It's a very abnormal track to politics. What was your kind of road into wanting to run for the first time?
Well, I mean, it goes back to, what would it be, 1990, I think, 1990 or 91. When I was coming out of law school, I wanted to live outside the Twin Cities, and I wanted to be able to hunt and fish because it's what I like to do. And a friend of my wife was a travel agent at the time, a gal that she did work for was a realtor who was telling her about the old Shady Beach Resort Hotel on Lake Sarah, which sits about 45 miles directly west of Minneapolis, on the edge of Hennepin County, which is what Minneapolis is located in. And she said, it's for sale, but you guys would never want that. And I didn't even look at the place. When she told me I could hunt in the front and I could fish in the back. It wasn't lakeshore, but it was a resort down the hill behind us. I was all in. My wife, Jackie, actually bought the house without me ever seeing it. Man, I loved living there, but I hated that house. My wife,
Yeah.
from the day we moved in, I think I painted it twice on my own because I'm too proud to ask people for help, because God knows then they'll ask me to paint their place, and I don't like painting to begin with. I mean, I got stories that go on, but what happened was we live on a dirt road, and I literally could walk across the street to the farm across the street and hunt pheasant and geese. One day, I get a call from my bride, who is really upset because the public works guy came by and put marks on 200-year-old oaks and 200-year-old maples. And when she went out to ask him what he was doing, he said, "Oh, we're coming and taking these out tomorrow because we're putting in a new sewer line and we're paving the road." And that, Reese, is what started the whole darn thing, because I called the mayor, who was the mayor for over 35 years, and he drove his old beat up Cadillac out at 10 o'clock at night and took out a brick phone. You remember those? Maybe you're too young, but it was
I might be too young for it. Yeah.
it's the original cell phone. He pulled it out and he called Danny Cook, the public works director, and he said, "What are you doing?" And he told him, and he said, "Nope, we're moving this road 30 feet to the west so that you're not taking these trees." And that's what started me down that road. That, and they tried to assess this young couple that was just starting out in life, $30,000 for a sewer not only did I not need, I didn't want. So that activated me, Reese. I started going to city council meetings.
Behind those warm and cozy nights at home, thousands of employees at BP go to work every day. People producing more U.S. natural gas. People building grid-scale solar capacity. People turning landfill waste gas into pipeline-quality renewable natural gas. And people delivering all of that power where it's needed. They're part of almost 300,000 jobs we support across the country. Just a few of the ways BP is investing in America.
Running for office, people might think is, oh, like, how do you come to that decision? How do you put together a team if you've never done it before? Do people come to you? You've been on both sides of it. You've been recruited and you've been a recruiter for the NRCC. I mean, how does that happen once you start getting politically involved, and how do you make that jump from being like, oh, I care about an issue, I'm going to go talk to my city council, and no, I'm going to actually try to be the person that solves an issue and run?
First, let me clarify something. I have never been recruited to run for any office. Never. In fact, a couple of times I ran for office, I was their last choice. Yeah, this is not something that's ever been easy for me. No, the campaign part was interesting because I didn't know how to do it. I just did a bunch of palm cards, and I would take my kids who were old enough to walk with me and go door to door. I mean, the town, Reese, was Independence, Minnesota. And at the time, I think we had 17 to 1,900 people who lived in this town. So it wasn't like an overly large town. It's interesting how politics have different groups and different friends, but it was a nonpartisan office at the time. I just went door to door, knocking on doors, and very, very interesting experience. But I got elected to the Independence City Council in 1990. And I mean, for the next 10 years I served there, I was reelected twice. I had to leave 2 years into my last term because we had moved 5 miles west to a town called Delano. And again, I was trying to get out of politics. I coached a lot, as you might expect. 7 kids, we were involved in everything from the church stuff to the school stuff to the athletic stuff. So at the hockey rink that fall, they were like, "You should run for the Delano City. You should run for mayor." And it's like, no, not at all. I finally went down to the city hall, paid $2 for one of the 2 open at large council seats just to shut them all up and get them to leave me alone. And literally, I wasn't doing anything. It's a Saturday morning. We have been in our house, our new house, for about a month. So I had resigned from Independence. And a guy running for mayor showed up at my front door, and I answered it. Jackie was out shopping. I had the kids. And this guy started bad-mouthing everything in town, telling me this person's bad, this is bad, that's awful. He was making me ill. So I finally said, I filed for the council. He goes, "I saw that. That's great. You run this time, maybe some people will get to know you, and then you can run again in a couple of years and win. By the time my wife got home, Reese, my hands were like this, and it was like I was on fire. And of course, Jackie and I then, this is literally the Saturday before the election.
Yeah.
Jackie probably put flyers in mailboxes of 1,500 houses, and I probably hit another 300 to 500. We're sitting there on election night, just watching the returns on the bigger election in the house, having a glass of wine when there's a knock on the door. Joe McDonald, who's now in the seat that I sit in, said, "Congratulations. You got elected to the city council. You lost to a gal who was born and raised here by 50 votes.
Dang.
And that was the beginning. I mean, independence was the beginning. I was learning how to do it. And then I ended up in the Minnesota legislature because I tell the story Sunday morning, and I take Jackie to the coffee shop sitting on the sidewalk, and I'm reading the paper, and I said, "Look at this. Our state legislator is announcing he's not running again. I wonder if it has anything to do with that loaded gun he carried through the airport last week." She looks at me, she goes, "You should do that." And I said, "Why in God's name would I ever do that? We got 7 kids, and my wife, God bless her, she looked at me and she said, 'Aren't you the one that said if you're not willing to do anything about it, you should just keep your mouth shut?' And here we are."
That's funny. And so you got to Congress after the legislator. What was the biggest adjustment there? I mean, now you're traveling to DC. Were your kids out of the house at this point by the time you got to DC, or?
I think Katie was just out. She's number 4. Joe had enlisted, so he was in the Navy, and Bill and John were still in school. In fact, Bill, when he was a senior and I was chairing the NRCC, the only thing they knew at the NRCC was every Friday. Didn't matter where I was going to be on Thursday or where I had to go at dark 30 on Saturday morning. Every Friday, you would have me back in Minnesota no later than 5:30, and I would be to wherever he was playing football by 7:30 every Friday. That was it. But those were the 2 that were still home. As they left the house, they're all out now, we just got busier and busier. And the biggest adjustment was the size, Reese.
Was that hard for you? I mean, you're a very social guy. Was it hard being like, okay, like I'm going to have to like votes and committees are not just my job. I'm also going to have to go have dinner with these members to get to know them, get to know these people in my class, get to know outside folks. The job is not just you vote and then you're done. There's a whole lot more that goes on to it. That's like, it's an all night thing. Like you're going all the time, 24/7.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like people. I told you that earlier, so it's not that hard for me. Although John Radcliffe would probably tell you a great story because you just reminded me of when we were elected together, and they invited us to a meeting off campus here because we were going to be this conservative. I was replacing Michelle Bachmann, and they had all these plans. This is what we're going to do when the vote takes place, and this is who we're voting for, and this is. John loves to tell the story that I sat there quiet through the whole thing. And then when it was done and they said, "All right, we're done. See everybody tomorrow." I said, "Whoa, wait a second. I don't know any of you, so I don't trust any of you."
Yeah.
Radcliffe loves that. It's like, "Hi, I'm Tom Emmer. I don't trust anybody." So, yeah.
And now he's director of the CIA. So,
and I shouldn't trust him at all. Yeah.
Hey, I don't think I don't think he trusts many people anymore with that job. That's for sure.
He's great for that spot. I don't know, Reese, we had a great class. I was elected with Elise Stefanik, even Glenn Grothman, right? There are several of the class that are still here. Buddy Carter, although he's now interviewing for another job. There's just a bunch of them that are still around. And that's where it starts, right? You come in with that group, then you go through the orientation phase, you get to know some people. I was given some great advice by Patrick McHenry. I met him the fall that I was running. He was coming through Minnesota, wanted to meet me. I had a fundraiser and this is why I think he wanted to meet me. I had a fundraiser at the Minnesota Wild opening hockey game. So I had to put 2 seats aside for this guy that I had only heard of, Patrick McHenry. But what a great guy. And Patrick may not even remember this. He was telling me, "Look, you're lucky you have the state legislative experience," he said, "because the personalities, the characters that you worked with at the state legislature," he said, "you're going to see all those same people and more in Congress." And he's right. I mean, the names are different. They come from different places, but the personalities, there's always one of each, right?
There's definitely big personalities.
Yeah.
What is it? I've always been curious about this myself. So when you chaired the NRCC, similar, What is something you're looking for in recruiting a candidate? I mean, McHenry brought up whenever y'all were talking, not when he was recruiting you, but when you were there, you said you're lucky you have the state legislator experience. That's something that you guys look for, is like past experience. Do you look for, what is something that makes an ideal candidate and like, hey, you should run for this seat?
I don't know ideal, but I can tell you that for me, I can tell within the first 5 minutes if this is somebody that should be running for office. It's just a weird thing. It's like you got to have, and I love it because I think President Trump has described it as it.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, you got to have it. And you know when someone doesn't have it, and you can tell when somebody might have it. One thing that I look for, I don't want to hear someone whine to me about a primary. I don't want to hear somebody whine to me about how hard it is. You know, I want somebody to pick. Nobody has ever given me anything in my life. I had to go earn it. You want good candidates, they got to go earn it. I'm not a big fan of self-funding candidates. I don't think they're bad, but the atmosphere around here is, oh, well, and he or she is a self-funder. I don't care. That person probably isn't going to listen to the advice of some youngster that has some great ideas because they've been running everything their whole life.
Do you travel to these districts when you were in RCC? Was there a live travel, meeting different people?
I will argue to you that my mentor, Kevin McCarthy, since I had the chance to travel with him for the better part of 5 years, he knew these districts as well or better than anyone. I would say we're in the same place because this is all we've been doing for the last almost a decade now. And yeah, you got to go get to know the district. I mean, South Texas is going to be a lot different than those Iowa seats, right? They've got some similarities, but you got to get to know the district because it's not just the person, it's the district. And you can't just plug and play. Some of these districts, and this was the thing that we started back when we took over the NRCC, we needed to find more candidates that look and sound like the districts they're seeking to represent. And you got to know the district to know that. I heard a funny story earlier today that somebody that said they were going to run in a certain state in the first district, then proceeded to completely butcher the name of the main city in that district. The person that was telling me the story said, hey, by the way, for someone who's born and raised here, this is how you pronounce the name of that city. And I said, what did the guy say? He said, oh, I'll have to work on that. I guess you will. I guess you will. That may not be your number one candidate, Reese.
It's not a great look to mispronounce the name, that's for sure. You said McCarthy was one of your best mentors.
I learned a ton from Kevin. Kevin is, he's a political animal. I mean, if he could have been the speaker, the majority leader, the whip, and the NRCC chair, I think he would have done all four.
At the same time.
Yep.
Yeah. Would you say that for a month-long span was one of the craziest legislative moments when he was ousted that you've been a part of, that was there, that was like, what in the world is happening? We don't have a speaker, like, we can't do anything. Like, was that one of the craziest moments of your career in Congress so far?
I don't know. I just, this last few years has been wild. What a ride. I mean, that's just one of many, right? You got the George Santos experience. You've got the government shutdowns. Now not just the Republicans who wrote the book on the darn things, but now Democrats are doing what Republicans used to do. We're going through major change. It's clear, right? It's like every 40 years in this country, you go through another growth ring if you study history. And we're in the middle of one right now that is, there's all kinds of, I talk about having majority of one, maybe two votes. Yeah, this is unprecedented, and that was unprecedented. So, but you go through history, you can find all kinds of different examples. I'm not going to pin one as being the most wild or not. Every day is wild. Every day around here is wild.
It's almost as though the era of like big majorities are over. It's going to be slim majorities one way or the other for the foreseeable future. And how do you count the votes on something that's like, you literally have no margin for error? There's not like, oh, we can afford to lose 30 votes and the bill will still pass. Like, you lose 2 and you're screwed at this point.
Yeah, we know where people are at. I'll go back to Steve Scalise was out treating. He had his cancer treatment. Thank God it went great and he looks fantastic. But back then, he was out and he wasn't coming back till the following Monday. And we were trying to pass the Mayorkas impeachment, I think.
Remember that. Yeah.
We knew exactly where everybody was at. And we advised the speaker during that, look, Mike, if everybody shows up on the other side, it's not going to pass. It'll be tied. But we've had one person missing all week on the other side, so you're taking a chance. Well, they rolled Al Green in a wheelchair, and I remember David Planning saying, I want to see him. I want to see him. Well, there he was. Poor guy did not look very good. Probably should have still been in the hospital, but they literally brought him to the floor to vote. So we knew where everybody was at. It's the same thing here. We just don't tell you guys that we know where everybody's at, because you're getting your own whip count, right? You're talking.
We try our best.
The press pool is doing their best. They're getting insight from different members, but at the end of the day, here in the whip's office, I know it probably gets frustrating once in a while. We just can't share any of that because we want our members to trust that whatever they tell us, we're not sharing. They get sensitive about things that they want to be able to do and things that they don't. They just want to serve their constituents, and they don't want a lot of outside drama.
That makes sense. We've run out of time here, and I really appreciate you taking the time to meet and be my guest here on the podcast, and thank you so much.
Yeah, I think it's fun.
On Notice is a production of Notice, and it's hosted by me, Reese Gorman. This show is produced by Notice and the team at the Podglomerate. Special thanks to Kate Nocera and Justin Pellegrini. We'd love to hear your thoughts. You could send us a note at podcast@notus.com. And if you like this episode, leave us a good review on Apple Podcasts. See you next week.
Behind the delivery trucks that keep your life stocked, thousands of employees at BP go to work every day. People bringing a new offshore production platform online. People making our refineries capable of more, like making renewable diesel from agricultural waste. People trading and shipping fuels to our customers. And people helping truckers fill up and get maintenance at our convenient locations. They're part of almost 300,000 jobs we support across the country. Just a few of the ways BP is investing in America.